Bandy, and this is my buddy Gibson, and this is my channel, Bandy's Books. Today is Tag Tuesday, so we're going to be featuring a different tag. This one is called the It's Finally Fall book tag, and it was originally created by Tall Tales. I know that we're at the end of fall, so it's kind of funny for me to be doing It's a Finally Fall tag, but I thought this was a good way to take out the fall season and move into the winter season. We're going to just, spend this last week of fall celebrating those great fall colors, those warm, cozy books that, make you feel warm inside, and all the things that are great about fall before we go ahead and transition into the winter. So with that being said, let's get into it. Prompt number 1. In fall, the air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a vivid setting. So I'm going to actually talk about a series of books. I read the first book in the series. I haven't read the second one yet, but the first book has just such a vibrant, beautiful setting. I learned so much from reading it, and I'm so excited to get into the second book, which I've just received from a friend. The first book in the series is The Henna Artist, and the second book is The Secret Keeper of Jaipur. They're both by DOKJA, and I absolutely loved The Henna Artist. It's set in India, and it tells the story of Lakshmi, who is a henna artist for the socialites of the city in Jaipur, and she actually raises to the status of, doing henna for some of the most powerful people in the city. She makes quite the name for herself, even though she has a really murky past and everything. It is so vibrant and beautiful. I haven't yet made it to India. It's one of the top places to travel on my list. But I felt very immersed in it reading the book. I could imagine the hustle and bustle of the streets and the beautiful house that Lakshmi was building for herself. It could, see the characters as they were described and the beautiful henna work that she was doing on her clients, the preparations, the grinding, the paste. Everything is so vivid and beautiful. And the second book, The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, actually follows Malik, who is her assistant in the first book. So I'm very excited to read the second book and see how it differs a bit from the first, but I'm expecting amazing things. I think if you really like a vivid scenery and you like a book that is really going to immerse you in the experience, I would highly, highly recommend The Henna Artist, and I'm sure I'm going to be recommending The Secret Keeper of Jaipur as well. Prompt 2. Nature is beautiful but dying. Name a beautiful book about loss. This is a tough one. I've read a lot of books about loss and grief, but I'm actually currently reading a book that is just extraordinarily beautiful. I haven't even finished it yet, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of my 5-star reads this month, and that is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This book is extraordinary for a multitude of reasons. The main topic of the book is the focus on Michelle Zauner's loss of her mother. Her mother died in her 50s of cancer, and that memory really haunts her, and she goes and explores a lot of the memories that she has with her mother throughout the book. But the thing that I particularly appreciate is that most of those memories are associated with food. I'm a chef for a living, and so for me, my memories are also really heavily associated with food. I can smell something cooking or taste something and immediately be transported to a place or a moment. And she has that same experience in this book, so I find myself really, really relating to her loss and the way that she feels it. And her writing is extraordinarily beautiful. It's almost poetic in places, and you can just really feel how tangible that sense of loss and grief is for her. I haven't completed the book yet, so I don't know if she's moved to a place of more healing, but definitely in the initial portion of the book, she's very raw and grief-stricken. And having lost my grandparents and uncle and friends and things, I can understand that feeling. So it's just an incredibly poignant, beautiful book. If you need to feel some things, like if you're feeling a little emotionally constipated and you need to get it out, this might be a good book. It might really help you get into touch with those things that are deep in there and maybe loosen up some tears and help you kind of let your feelings out. So highly, highly recommend. Prompt 3. Fall is back to school season, a nonfiction book that taught you something. So I don't actually own a physical copy of the book, so probably a picture of the cover is going to pop up right here. I have quite a few nonfiction books that I've read this month already, and a couple more that are in my TBR back here. Probably the one that I've liked the best so far. I don't generally read too much self-help because a lot of times I find it cheesy or just kind of reiterating the same thing over and over, or not that practical to put into practice. But I decided that since there's so many books that are being raved about right now in terms of self-help, that I would maybe try to give a couple books from that genre a go. So I'm trying to maybe read one self-help or like improvement book per month. So this month I read Atomic Habits, and I actually found it to be quite useful. I thought it was really interesting how the author discusses how we form habits and the basis for our habits, and how to create like permanent habit instead of just these temporary changes. There's a lot of exploration of like, you know, for example, at the beginning of the new year, everybody gets really gung-ho and they start forcing themselves through these motions of, you know, trying to build new habits and why it's unsuccessful. He talks a lot about like the British cycling team and how they went from being one of the worst cycling teams to being one of the best, and all of these little tests that they ran and the logic behind the formation of the habits that made a successful biking team. I found it pretty useful. I mean, there's definitely certain things that are a little obvious, or maybe I felt like you don't really need a book to tell you, but I thought there was a lot of useful information in conditioning and pattern forming, and it definitely, you know, made me consider some of my own habits and pattern forming, particularly that I tend to be overly ambitious in my habits. I want to write a list of 100 things that I want to change, and then I end up not necessarily being able to change all those things because I'm overwhelmed. And he talked about, you know, making incremental changes and how once you get one habit, you can stack another habit on top of it, and creating like habit stacking allows you to accomplish more. So I thought that was useful and interesting, and I guess so far that's probably my best nonfiction read of the month. Look over there. All right, so prompt 4. In order to keep warm, spend some time with the people you love. Name a fictional household you want to be a part of. So I've talked about this book a lot already this month, and that's probably because it's my favorite thing that I've read so far, hands down, this month. I know I've been blowing it up on Instagram, and I think I've already mentioned it in like 2 videos in November, so if you're sick of hearing about it, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep talking about it. That is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. If I was going to join one fictional family in the month of November, it would be this one. This family is a found family. They're not genetically related. It is 7 children in an orphanage and their headmaster, and then like the headmaster's assistant. And it's just so lovely, the relationships that they all have. They're all so caring of each other. Each person's very unique, but they support each other in that uniqueness. Instead of being fearful of the differences that they each have, they accept each other and love each other for who they are. And we get to see this through the eyes of a stranger, Linus, initially at the beginning of the book. And it's kind of cool. I personally would love to be able to join a group of people like this. This book just gave me so many warm fuzzies. It's funny too because I'm really skeptical when people are like, oh my gosh, this book is going to make you feel so many things. It's so warm and fuzzy and sweet. I usually roll my eyes, to be honest. I'm pretty cynical in some ways. And so I didn't expect this to be a book that I loved. I actually expected this to be a book that I rolled my eyes at a lot, and instead it really was like putting on a warm sweater and just feeling all warm and cozy. So I would highly, highly recommend this book as well. Alright, so prompt 5 is colorful leaves are piling up. Show us a pile of fall-colored spines. So this is my fall stack right here. You can see red, orange, yellow. There's even kind of like a brownish color and then some dark green, just because I know that red, orange, and yellow are like the primary colors for leaves, but some trees stay green, some leaves die and turn brown, so I kind of wanted it to be a whole spectrum. And the books that I have in this stack are Cazadora by Romina Garber, The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Zoraida Cordova, The Mountains Sing by Nguyen Phan Ke Mai, Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby, Trust Exercises by Suzanne Choi, Los Niños de Herrena by Tiller Mazeo, and then Maximum City by Suketu Metu, and then The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and The Drunken Botanist by Amy Stewart. So that composes my fall stack, all the fall colors, and this is honestly a perfect example of my typical TBR or book stack of any kind. It's going to be a large mix of different genres. We've got some nonfiction, some fiction. We've got, within the fiction, several different genres and a couple different languages. This is pretty typical for me. Prompt 6. Fall is perfect for fireside storytelling. Name a book where someone is telling a story. So this is a book I have not yet read. It is on my TBR for the month of November, and I am actually reading it this week because I have a book club discussion for it at the end of the week. I hear nothing but rave reviews about it. It's been all over Bookstagram, Booktube, Book Talk, every book blog, everything. It's like, the book of the season, I feel like. And I'm super excited to read it. My mom brought me this copy of it. And that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is told in first person, so I'm not sure which character it is that is telling the story, as I haven't read it yet. But one of the characters is narrating the story himself in first person. So that is what I picked for a character telling the story. Next prompt. Nights are getting darker. Give us a dark, creepy read. So, after October, I have so many recommendations. Prior to October this year, I really never read much horror. I read like psychological thrillers or suspense occasionally, but gothic horror, graphic horror, anything that falls in that spectrum, I hadn't really read much before. So in October, I challenged myself to get outside of my comfort zone and read things I would not normally read. And I'm so glad I did, because I ended up with so many good books. And I actually still have a ton of horror books that are left over that I didn't get to in the month that I'll be reading, throughout the next couple months as well. But the 3 that I really liked the most last month were The Push by Ashley Audrain. Covers are going to pop up here for the 2 that I don't have, which features a woman who is pregnant and really disconnected with her pregnancy. She feels like something's wrong through the whole deal. And then the baby comes and she's still disconnected with the baby. The maternal instincts aren't kicking in. She kind of has to force herself to go through the motions. And, it kind of seems initially that she might have some postpartum depression issues, but it comes to be that later on, that feeling never really goes away. She tries her best to be a mom, but there's just something that's always off. And this story really explores that relationship between mother and child, and that disconcerting feeling of knowing that something's wrong with your child and then nobody believing you. I was so caught off guard by this book. I honestly did not expect to love it as much as I did. I am not somebody that wants to have kids. I don't have a strong maternal instinct. I'm not a baby person at all. So I thought a whole book about pregnancy and being a mom, me. But it had been receiving such good feedback that I thought I'd give it a try, and it was really, really good. So highly recommend that one. The next one would be My Sweet Girl by Amanda Jayatissa. I read that in the ebook format, and it was another one I had no expectations for. I'd never heard of Amanda Jayatissa prior to reading this book, so I had no preconceived notions about what the story would be like. And I just went into it and enjoyed it. And it was a really suspenseful tale. It's told in dual story timelines rather. One is in the past and one is in the current day. And it features a character who's really torn. She's living in San Francisco. She was adopted by, a well-off American family. She's originally from Sri Lanka. And she's conflicted about the life that she left behind in Sri Lanka and this mystery that has tormented her all her life. And her 2 worlds start to collide, and it comes with alarming results. Really, really good book, super suspenseful. I binge read the whole thing within 2 days, and I would definitely recommend that as well for a spooky, creepy book. And the last of the spooky, creepy books that I would recommend would be Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I know that this one is all over the place, and I'm not super unique by suggesting it, but there's a reason that it's all over the place. Silvia Moreno Garcia is an excellent writer. I have now read 3 of her books, and I have 2 more on my list. I have one on my TBR and one in my audiobooks right now. This book is a sensory experience. It is very like slow initially, but it really allows you to kind of immerse yourself in this creepy manner that the story is set in. She's in this house. It's out in the mountains. The same thing. There's just something that feels off about it, and you can't quite place what it is initially. But as the story progresses, that ominous feeling just continues throughout the story, and it oozes out of everything, out of the characters, out of the walls of the house, out of the cemetery. Just it really builds that creepy vibe. And the conclusion was really interesting for me. It was a conclusion that I did not anticipate, and one that I had also not necessarily seen done before. So highly recommend this as well for a dark, creepy read. Prompt 8. Days are getting colder. Give us a short, heartwarming read to warm you up. Okay, I'm going to talk about a book that I don't own a copy of, but one that's very dear to my heart, and one that I remember fondly from being a child. And that is If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. This is like one of those sweet children's books that I think even adults can appreciate. And it's about a little mouse wanting a cookie. And it just is like, even all these years later, occasionally I'll see a picture of it on like Bookstagram. Someone will post a picture of like a pile of kids' books, and that'll be on the top. And it just makes me feel so warm and cozy thinking about it. I remember my parents reading it to me as a little kid. I had a copy of it. And it's just one of those cherished books that I think no matter your cultural background, no matter how old you are, no matter, where you're coming from, that it's a book that is just a sweet thing that you could share. So that would be my recommendation for something to warm you up. Prompt 9. Fall returns every year. An old favorite you like to reread. Okay, so I have a lot of old favorites that I like to reread. I am one of those people that when I get really stressed out, I tend to resort to like old favorites. For me, it works well because I'm reading and I'm immersing myself in something that's not reality, but it's also not new, so it doesn't necessarily require as much thought or effort as a new book does. And there's nothing like surprising, or like I don't feel anxiety about like, oh, it's coming to a climax, or oh, this is the second book in the series and it's going to be on a cliffhanger. It's like, slipping into a hot bubble bath. You just relax. So one of the series that I think I've reread the most and that I have the most fondness for, technically this isn't part of the series, it's kind of a prequel to the series, but would be The Hobbit and then the Lord of the Rings series. This is my old copy of The Hobbit. I bought this when I was in 8th grade, so almost 20 years ago. And the reason I had bought it was because we were doing a play version of The Hobbit for my 8th grade drama class. And so I bought this to read it, not as a screenplay, but as a book. And I fell in love with it. And I've reread this so many times over. I've also read the Lord of the Rings series many times over. You can see it's well loved. And it's probably the thing that, one of the things that I return to the most. So if for some reason you haven't read The Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings, highly, highly recommend. What are you waiting for? This is a classic. And finally, prompt 10. Perfect time for cozy reading nights. What are your favorite cozy reading accessories? Okay, so if it's a rainy, cold night and I'm going to sit at home reading, what do I like to have? So I have an epic unicorn onesie that is like super soft and warm and fuzzy. That it just makes me feel so happy. It's rainbow colored. My dad gave it to me for Christmas one year, and it's probably one of my favorite sets of pajamas. It's like just the comfiest, softest thing. So I think I would like to be wearing my unicorn onesie. I have some knit bunny slippers that I also got for Christmas one year, I think from my mom. And they're also soft. They're like fleece lined on the inside. So definitely those two items. Probably a really soft fuzzy blanket. I love like really, really soft materials. I'm not somebody that's really good at naming textiles, so I'm not sure what the textile is that I'm talking about, but anything that you just like touch and want to rub your face against. Probably a mug of either hot tea or hot cocoa, depending on the time of day or night. If it's in the morning and I'm just getting up, I do some tea with, I do usually Irish breakfast tea with some cream and sugar. If it's evening and I'm having to like go to sleep soon, then probably a hot cocoa, because that's a little less caffeine. What else? In my apartment, unfortunately, here in Vegas, I don't have a fireplace because we don't generally need one. But I love a fireplace and a roaring fire. That would be great to read by. And, you know, depending on the time of year, like a lit up Christmas tree is amazing. The smell of something cooking, I guess that's technically not an accessory. Now I'm getting into ambiance and I'm segueing from accessories, but you get the feeling. I like really cozy things. So for my reading nights, a soft onesie, soft slippers, a nice snuggly blanket, and a hot cocoa. Probably my dog Gibson and my partner Oz, and it's a good night for me. So this has been the It's Finally Fall book tag. Like I said, I felt like this was just a good way to celebrate the end of fall. I know it's actually technically made for starting fall, but you know, it's okay, we break rules here. The last little bit of this is to tag someone else to complete this. So I am going to tag a newer account. I saw her account last week, I think, for the first time, and it's someone that is still like learning YouTube and, you know, getting into the swing of things, and I'm really excited to see where they go with their account, and that is Overthinking DOKJA. I hope that I pronounced that right. I'm so sorry if I said that wrong. I'm going to be tagging their account in the description of this story, so make sure that you go over and show her some love, and I hope that you'll be doing a tag video of your own soon. So I hope that these books were interesting and you enjoyed this little bit of prompts. I want to wish you preemptively a happy Thanksgiving if you're celebrating, and if you're not, I hope that you just enjoy these last few fall days before we get into the winter. If you've liked this video and you're enjoying these Tag Tuesdays, consider giving me a thumbs up. It's super helpful to get feedback and know what's working and what's not. And tell me in the comments below how you feel about my picks for the prompts. Did the things that I picked fit the prompts given, or do you think I'm kind of like jamming stuff in where it doesn't belong? And let me know if you've read any of these books as well. I love to hear your thoughts. I mostly started this channel to shout about books with people that liked books, so please come shout your thoughts about books at me, so I can shout mine back. And if you enjoy book content, consider giving me a subscribe. I do post regularly. I am currently trying out a 4-day-a-week posting schedule. So one day is book tags, one day is a 5-minute book review, one day is the longer form book content like book hauls, TBRs, end of the month wrap-ups, festive, you know, videos, things like that. And the 4th day is a fictional book-related recipe where I would take a book like The Hobbit, pick out a food that they mentioned there, create a recipe, and teach you how to cook it. So if you enjoy those sorts of things, give me a follow. I'm super friendly. I want to make lots of friends here and, you know, share my love of books with you and enjoy listening to your love of books in return. So that being said, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm Caitlin Bandy. This is my channel, Bandy's Books, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.